Hello and welcome to this NetHope webinar on the 2025 State of Humanitarian and Development Cybersecurity. We will give it a few more minutes to allow attendees to come into the sessions, and then we will start shortly.
Yeah, and also a warm hello from my side. Apologies, Daniel, I cut you off there. Hope everybody's feeling great. Welcome to this webinar.
Well, we're going to do that a lot this webinar, so we might as well get started. If you want, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, who you are and what organization, in what location you work for. Always nice to see where people are logging in from. You may add whether you have winter or summer weather or in between at the moment. Where I am in Germany, it's cold and rainy right now. Welcome to all the new participants. I can see there's more people coming in, so we'll give it another minute and then we will get started. And I see we have a great spread of people from different organizations and locations here. Welcome all. Lovely to see you all in this session. We're 2 past the hour, so I think we will get started. So a warm welcome to everyone that has made the time to join us. We're your host today, Nino Harris, Virtual Chief Information Security Officer at NetHope, and myself, Daniela Weber, Director of NetHope Center for the Digital Nonprofit. And between us, we will introduce you to the findings of this report. Before we kick off in earnest, some housekeeping rules here. It would be lovely if you haven't done yet to change your Zoom name so that we can see your name and organization. Always fun to see who we're talking to. You may have noticed that we are recording this webinar, and the recording will be posted on the NetHope website in a few days. While we talk a lot about AI, we do not like AI note takers in our sessions or recordings to be taken. So I have kicked out a few that I saw coming in. We would also ask you not to take screenshots. All the material we talk about, all the material we show in the presentation will also be in the report, so you have it all when you download the report. There's 2 ways for you to ask questions, and we're very keen that you do so. We will come to them at the end of the session. You can use either the Q&A function or the public chat for that, and Nino and I will track what's going on there and respond at the end when we have some time left. This is a safe space meant to be for honest dialogue between organizations and individuals. We want to be able, everyone is comfortable to share and participate in a dialogue in an atmosphere that's supportive. And according to our standing policies, this is a non-partisan space. So with this, I will start talking about the State of Cybersecurity report. This is our 3rd year of surveying members, and at this point I want to give a shout out to everyone that's contributed and supported. So firstly, big thank you to those NetHope members that have responded to the survey. It helps us greatly to get a picture of where the sector stands, what the progress is, and where the gaps are. I also want to thank the team that has put the report together. That's Ivy Gasu, Meherit Takela Mandefro, and Diana Langley, who have worked with Nino and I to make this report happen. And last but very much not least, I also want to thank the partners that are supporting our work on this. That's Cisco, Okta, Microsoft, Box, and PagerDuty, our digital protection and CDN partners. Why do we do this report? Well, one thing is that it informs the NetHope members and the wider nonprofit sector about what the best practices are and to help them with their own decision making, because it gives a benchmark as well as our insights on the data that we've seen and the advice we're building based on that. It also informs our own digital protection program, because the work of that is very much focused on filling those capacity gaps and to support and execute the wider system change that needs to happen to make nonprofits safer and more digitally resilient. And last but very not least, it empowers our global humanitarian ISAC to serve as a catalyst for collective action for member nonprofits coming together and move cybersecurity forward. And I'm going to let Nino talk now about what the Global Humanitarian ISAC is.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Daniela, and hello everyone. I hope you guys are doing great in this cold winter for those who are in the cold side of this planet. I think Global Humanitarian ISAC, for those of you guys who are not familiar with ISAC, the Information Sharing and Analysis Center, is going to be one of those vital elements when we think about NGO ecosystems. We are very unique in our ecosystems, digitally, operation-wise, budget-wise, etc. But often we are homeless in where we talk about cybersecurity and data protection. There are many regulations, many tools and options out there, and often you would see that the for-profit tag is associated with them. Expensive, very complex, etc. But where would we go and talk to each other is going to be the element that ISAC provide. It is a home that we have to sort of have to feel safe to talk to each other. Your experience, the tool that you are going to use, anything related to data protection and cybersecurity, that's what it embodies when we refer to Global Humanitarian ISAC, which is managed by NetHope. At the moment, 63 of the biggest NGO organizations and sub-organizations are registered with 144 individual. And as I mentioned, we talk about a variety of stuff. So if I go to data protection side of what exactly we are doing as the program in NetHope, we have four main pillars of this program that will help and shape the approach to cybersecurity and data protection. So you guys remember Daniela mentioned that finding the survey result will really shape how we come up with different ideas and approach to make sure that somehow we will be able to fill the gaps that we see. One of them is capacity building. As we go through the finding, you will see that we have lost a lot of human resources and we constantly need to fill these gaps. So how would we go about and make sure that there are trainings that are provided for our members? But those training, as good as they are, it has to have some tools and some asset with it that this individual could use. And partners are there that we reach out to from Microsoft, Okta, Cisco, Box, and say, this is where we need your help because you guys are providing and other vendors that will come and help us. And obviously the enabling mechanism for all of that it embodied itself is the ISAC that will gather us in one place. And this is where we constantly talk about different stuff and variety of stuff. And finally, the fourth pillar of the program is the direct funding. Although the budget is not as much as we want, we wish there were like a lot, as many budgets were cut, but it is the idea of how would you do something about cybersecurity that makes sure that whatever you are doing, it will help the wider community? For example, West Africa requires more involvement of governments that are there to make sure that the initiative for cybersecurity and data protection is not left alone, and it is not just handed over to NGOs, but government is also involved. One of the sub grants that we had was related to that, and we have variety of those that we will help the community to be able to come up with solutions. That could be a research, that could be a development, that could be even a tool, or in some cases, like this year, for first time, what we have done, it is one of the magnificent thing is we are doing penetration testing for some of our members. That has never been done collectively, just to show that with sub grants, this is how we would be able to help the community in large. Daniela?
Thank you so much, Nino. So let's dive into the report, and we are going to go through some of the key findings from the report. There is more in the actual document, and at the end we will have a QR code for you to get the link to download the full report as well. But looking at the key findings, what's the summary really? The cyber threat landscape has become more diverse and frequent. And you will see that almost all nonprofit organizations that we've surveyed have been impacted by cyber attacks. There is progress, but it is slow and it doesn't catch up fast enough with the growing threats. So that is the reality. And also, we are still to see the full impact of the budget and staff reductions that have happened during 2025. Not all of that will have happened when we collected the data. So we will see the full impact, I expect, in the report that we're going to do again this year. Organizations struggle to achieve full coverage with tools. Tools are there, and we're going to see some areas what tools are used and to what extent. And one of the challenges is clearly to achieve or even get close to that 100% coverage across organizations. And of course, we will have to talk about AI. And I saw a lot of the questions we got from the people when they registered are also around AI. In the report, we've looked at AI to combat threats, and we see that's just emerging. Well, we're going to talk a little bit also at the end around AI as a threat, which is an important topic to us and clearly also to many of you. But let's jump in. So mentioned resources and budget, human capital. So we've seen a little bit of growth in the number of CISOs across the organizations, but still it's not large. So Nino, what does that look like? What's the human capital view?
Often we might think that tools are there. It will answer the need. You know, you don't need the human expertise, the analysis mind that an individual will have, or the trickery of how mind think when we try to hack a system. For those of you guys who want to understand more in a technicality of it, often there is in my previous capacity, there was an attack that one of the log mechanism captured. And I fit that to most of AI solutions out there to see if it is able to analyze that. It managed the 99% of it, but the most important 1% was missing. Believe it or not, the 99 was okay. I was happy with that, but 1% was missing. And this is where it comes to the power of individuals with many years of experience in cybersecurity roles, all the way from junior to advanced level of CISO levels, that will shape how organization will tackle and handle the solutions and issues related to data protection and cybersecurity. Unfortunately, often cybersecurity is tagged along with information technology. Yes, we use information technology like every other department, HR, your designers, your comm, etc., etc. But in reality, we are an independent entity that requires to have robust policies, robust individuals who will deal with threats that are constantly coming toward us. The recent report, I think it was 2 years ago, one was published by Microsoft and last year by Okta. It shows that NGOs, we are the second most attacked sector out there. Now, if we are, and less equipped, if you compare that with big players from oil to bank to government, et cetera, now how do you safeguard? This is where it is going to be very vital to have the human capacity to handle that. And one way that we try to tackle that at NetHope, each year with a limited budget we go and we hunt for appropriate cybersecurity courses, very advanced in some cases. This year, what we did, because we are going through penetration testing and also CIS benchmark controlling, we have selected 15 voucher per course to be able to share that with our members, so they will be equipped with that knowledge. I know, since last January, when many projects and budgets were cut, because we have also, you guys have lost a lot of those expertise that would there, unfortunately, but it shows that InfoSec, it is slowly trying to fill those gaps. It is not as fast as we like, but there is an improvement. Daniela?
Thank you, Nino. At the same time, the cyber risk is increasing, right? So 70% of nonprofits have said that the cyber risk is slightly or significantly increased. And I'm wondering, Nino, is even that too optimistic?
Unfortunately not. And the reason that I will say unfortunately not, it might not really represent, because your first bullet point you talked about, we really don't know the impact of budget cut that has happened. We really don't know when the survey was responded, when often people will say, yes, slightly we saw an increase in the risk. What was the tools that were used? Those were part of missing information from that survey, because we really didn't dive into the granularity level of it. It could be in upcoming years we will see that impact when data is somewhere out there in the dark market and it has been exchanged between bad actors or abused in some cases. So often I would say, do not put your guard down. Even if it is a sunny day in the world of cyber and the world of connectivity, there is somebody poking at your system. And nowadays, with power of AI automation, think about that concept of if we just attack IP version 4s, for those of you guys who are technical, there are about some billion number of those IP versions 4s that you could scan and attack. For a government, that is less than 20 minutes. For an entity with enough power, that is less than 20 minutes. Now, the tools that we have to be able to respond to that, to see the threat, they are often missing that expertise, and the time is not there. Like we have a steering committee with other members, the CISOs of those members. They often talk about the expertise they have lost because of the budget cost, because of program costs. That expertise is going to be very vital to understand where that level of risk is. Daniela.
And that level and that loss of expertise will have a knock-on effect, right? Because it does increase the risk per se already. And the reality is the attacks are growing. Yeah. So for example, almost all respondents have experienced the phishing attacks, but there's lots of other types of attacks as well that we see coming our way.
And one thing I'm sure you guys have noticed, it is no longer those emails with lots of typo mistakes that you will receive nowadays with phishing attack. They are more sophisticated, AI technologies adopted. Basically, the bad actors will see, well, I don't really have to know how to write a code. One of those AIs could create a ransomware for me. It could write a proper email with photos, et cetera, that I could use. Now, I think one major issue that we are facing, when I say we, the world of nonprofit NGO sector, is we really are not equipped with discovering the vectors of those attacks, because it really requires forensic investigations, constantly going to the offensive element, not just the defensive element, to go and trace them. And if you do not have those capabilities / budget, time, etc., you might have a log and alert somewhere that it says, or somebody will report and say, we received X type of attack, a phishing, a spear phishing, or it was an advanced persistent threat that came to the network. But you will say, okay, now what are we going to do? And this is, I think it will become very vital, very vital for governments and private sector to have a shadowing presence with us, that they will walk with us how they will do it. Like recently, I have asked one of our partners, Cisco, to come and showcase what would they do in an incident response situation to be able, so at least we could understand the level they would go through, and that will equip us more when it comes to attack. Because recognizing an attack, an incident, as great as it is, I think the next step will be how do we tackle, how do we make sure it is stopped? How do we make sure we are more prepared when it comes to the next level? Because the attacker will not stop. We all know that, if one method of attack or one vector did not succeed, I'm going to use a different method. And most likely it will succeed because somehow there is always a gap between the individuals or the ecosystem. Daniela.
Thank you, Nino. So let's have a look at the other thing that's, of course, a big challenge and will continue to be, that's budgets, right? So we talked about there's more threats, they're more complex, they're more efficient because of AI, unfortunately, but they are not met by adequate budgets. What have we seen there?
Yeah, so after I used to work in private sector, and motto was you have 10% of budget. It is massive. It is big. And one thing we have to really understand is cybersecurity is not going to go away. Threat of attack will not go away, and it is not cheap. It will be expensive. However, it will even become more expensive if we don't invest today. If I was investing yesterday, I would pay less in comparison than investing tomorrow. Now you can see that more of our members, they have indicated that they do not have adequate budget, and this is one of the reasons with our sub grant we also try to put cash into the system of doing something research and work related to cybersecurity to be able to help the community to not stay behind. Because one research in part of the world will help other entities. Like last year, one of our members tried to create an information governance model that it is specific for NGOs, because there isn't anything. There are plenty for profit and for government, but none for NGOs per se. You can see from this slide, still there are we are tagged with IT. There's like 5 to 10% of IT budget that is assigned for cybersecurity, rather than cybersecurity to be its own entity, which I've already talked about it. I know it is difficult. I know with budget cuts that we have seen is going to be harder, but often it is not the actual money investment of buying equipment and tools that will basically provide a protection. But going back to the basic, all the way to the human capacity that we need to build around whatever ecosystem we have is going to be very vital to fill these gaps. And the budget will be obviously a massive part of that. Daniela.
Thank you, Nino. Now let's talk a little bit about these tools. So I already said this in the beginning, we see the footprint increasing, so that's good. But how fast does it increase, and where are there still gaps? So on the next few slides, we're going through a number of these tools that are being used, starting with device management. Nino.
Yes, it is increasing because one of the first control of CIS, it tells what you have within the network. I always would go, if you are doing any assessment, if you do not have the full picture of what is going on within the ecosystem you are protecting, you are just guessing there. And there are tools, many options that we have out there that will help you. Another example that I could come up with, that you might have the best tool out there. You might have a Ferrari car without a driving license, without knowing how to drive. How are you going to basically fully benefit from the power of this engine that you have? Is similar. They are complex tools. Often you look at it and you will say, well, yeah, it is very complex. That is one side of it. There are open source also, which also there are some element of risk and issues with open source that we go and say is very similar to having a free copy. Yeah, it is free, but anything comes afterward is gonna cost you. Taking care of that popular. Like last year, we had a webinar about Snort system, which is an intrusion detection system. Yes, it is free when you want to use it, but you need at least 10, 15 years of expertise of an individual to come and tweak that system that will constantly work with you. And it is not just one go that, yeah, we have done our work, that's it, let's go and relax on the beach. It constantly requires that attention because the landscape of threats are changing. The way that the bad actors are modifying their attack, it is changing. That's why you need to constantly battle with that. So that's why, yes, we are seeing some increase. Some elements are still missing, but it is good that we can see that there is an emphasis on understanding, at least within the ecosystem, how to manage and control your endpoint data, uh, uh, devices, mobile devices, and so on and so forth. If we go to the next one, please.
Absolutely, yes. And the next one is multi-factor authorization.
Now, multi-factor authentication, as good as it is not an answer. Okay. I know most of you guys might think, well, what? We thought it was the final answer. It actually is another layer of security. Defense in depth is the keyword. What we mean about defense in depth? Imagine inside your house, you have multi layers of defense from gate to door to windows, from different rooms. They each have their own doors, different windows. You have a safe inside the house. For example, you are protecting your jewelries and so on and so forth. You can see how it is layering itself. Multi-factor authentication or any other tools that we are using is on the same level because there are ways to bypass. In last year virtual summit, Okta came and showed that how we could, and there are many tools, by the way, for those of you guys who are interested in that, how easy it is to bypass the multi-factor authentication and pretend that you are the individual who is trying to authenticate. Make sure that you are using passphrases, for example. Make sure that the environment is also part of this authentication, not just one login, not just one account, but the browser itself can only be accessed by this device, but by this individual rather than just one account. But still, we are not really at the level that we could be happy. Now, often the keyword is if you have about 75% of multi-factor authentication across your ecosystem, you are doing all right. Because 100% is really difficult to achieve because of lack of connectivity. Some devices are not compatible and so on and so forth. But it just shows that we are investing. We understand the power of having multi-factor authentication. Because at the end, humans are still in control. Thanks God, there is no Skynet to come and say, yeah, you are out of the picture and we will be in control. That means we individual are the main target. The human side is still the main target for the bad actors. So let's not make it easy for the bad guys. Let's come up with very complex passphrases. Length of your password is the crucial part of it. In some cases, I'll go back to that one when we talk about some of the recommendations, definitely.
Thank you, Nino. But I think you're alluding to a very important point here, which is it's really the mixture of the tools, the processes, the policies, and the people that help making us secure in that
Indeed.
combination rather than just relying on a tool, for example, correct?
Indeed.
Yeah. And here is the other tool we wanted to look at, and that's a group of tools, really asset and account management.
Yes, which we already talked about some of the tools that are there within ecosystem. I think, one crucial part that often we might ignore is the whole idea of hiring and letting somebody go, or when they move from the job. Could be variety of reasons, budget, somebody finds a better job, and so on and so forth. How do we manage and control those? So it's not just about life asset within the ecosystem. Remember, it has to be a policy. It has to be step by step of how do we identify those elements within the network. That could be one third party. That could be Nino, Daniela. It could be Ian. It could be, and so on and so forth. Or it could be a third party who will come and do something. Knowing those assets and managing those assets, especially when everything is related to identity management, is very vital. And I think that that shows that ignoring what is live within the system or what is no longer active within the system is going to be crucial. It doesn't mean delete. Never ever delete anything, by the way, until you have a policy for that one. Deleting account is not good. You need to have a policy for retention, for deletion, depend on the environment that you are working with, and also the nature of data that you are working with. If we go to next one, please.
Thank you, Nino. And also to add here, because that's something in my CIO days that has always haunted me. Knowing, as the IT person, knowing that somebody has left the organization doesn't happen automatically, right? So it's also that engaging with other functions like HR, for example,
Yeah.
To really have that information flow, ideally automatically, so that you actually know people leaving the organization, people coming into the organizations, that you can catch up with that.
Yeah, indeed.
Right. And yeah, we talked about it's not just the tools. So one of the aspects is, of course, the capabilities for using the
Yeah.
tools. What does that look like, Nino?
Yeah, so the landscape is changing. There is no denying of that one. New tools are coming, the cloud environment, the on-prem environment, a hybrid system between both of that. I think we have to be very I'm searching for the correct word here. I think flexibility is not the correct word that I'm looking for, but I think adaptability, it will be more as an appropriate, because the systems are changing, the methods are changing, and this is where constantly it requires investment. What I mean in investment is not just money, but time. Your efforts that today I'm learning a new thread. Today I'm using one of the AI providers, and let's trick them. Let's see how deep I can go, and how would the organization will benefit from that. Yes, we have gone through a training called penetration testing, but it is not going to be the end of it. How do I share this knowledge of the tools and platform that I have used with others? Like through ISAC, Global Humanitarian ISAC, what we have done, we have also created a document that each member and organization could come and share what they are using for whatever it is. You have an asset management, you have, I don't know, a firewall, an antivirus, and so on and so forth. Share that knowledge. So if tomorrow somebody wants to use the same system, at least they know who to come to when it comes to help or any questions that they might have. Next one, please.
Thank you, Nino. Just because I saw a raised hand here, if you have any questions or comments, because we're a big group of people, we'd ask you to put your question, if you have one, in the chat or in the Q&A function, and then we'll try and answer that at the end of the presentation. So yeah, moving then to the AI topic. Now, this was the first time we asked an AI question in the survey, I think, and it was really around, to what extent do people adopt AI solutions, and which ones they're using for cybersecurity and data protection, because AI can support these things. But I think that's at the point of the survey, the uptake in that particular area was still rather slow.
The monster in a room, right? Like, we have to talk about it. It's not an elephant in a room anymore. It is the monster in a room. And now, and also one of the major question was, how do we face this AI stuff? I I studied cybersecurity a long time ago, and there was when you go to apply for a university, they have a motto or a slogan on top of that, and their slogan was, to catch a thief, you have to be a thief, was the slogan. I was like, this is wrong, man. I cannot be a thief. But then I talked to the head program, and he said, and he was the old sort of gray hat hacker, very classic gray hat hacker. And he said, it is vital that we will know how they are attacking to be able to prevent. And AI does the same thing in both ways. It could be offensive and it could be defensive. And I think ignoring that and say, well, no, actually, I'm just going to go on the defensive side of it, sit and see what they will tell us, is not going to be an enough answer. Because these tools, although at the moment they are not in that capability of replacing, the analytic mind of humans when it comes to cybersecurity, In future, they will. It is inevitable because enough data is fit to their system, they will pick up, they will become sort of self-efficient generating solution to problems that they will see. We might have a bypass. It's very similar to quantum computing. When you think about when quantum computing is going to replace the current encryption, well, we're going to have quantum computing for encryption also. So I'm not worried. And it's going to be the same concept when the offensive becomes powerful, the defensive will also become powerful. Use and apply tools that are matching into ecosystem that you are working with, and they have passed the test of time, not just the one that you have heard somewhere it does something, because it could have consequences, especially when data regulations are involved and all of a sudden you feed data into it. Instead of protecting you, now your data is released. Like last year, one of the incident was when it generated many tokens for authentication from one of the AIs, which I'm not going to mention their name. It was repeated for other individual who had the same question. So it generated the same token, which is not really an ideal approach here. Daniela.
Thank you, Nino. So yeah, so AI is a threat, and I wanted to say some words about that as well, because in the Center for Digital Nonprofit, we do a lot of research on the use of AI in the sector and what we are using. So we talked earlier about it. It obviously is a threat in the sense that it can make attacks more efficient and create new attacks and help people create attacks if they want to. There are other threats that really come through the use of AI and like you said, entering data in AI, for example. So one super important area that we always say is governance and having an AI policy that clarifies what actually AI can be used for and what not. And I'm talking particularly about the generative AI tools, of course, and chatbots. What is the information you should absolutely not enter in a prompt window? So these very basic rules need to be there for people to know how they can use the product safely. We see a lot of shadow AI, I think, certainly in the sector. And that is, of course, because the tools are so easy to access for anyone, right? So I heard from a lot of IT colleagues that they're struggling to catch up to either even see what tools are in use. And of course, there are other tools that can help with monitoring that, but also to evaluate tools to be able to tell their users what is safe to use and what isn't. So being able to take a proactive approach to identify a tool or a number of tools that you do consider safe as an organization, and to then enable the people in your organization to use those and then exchange their experiences and learnings as well. That's really, really important, I think, as well. And last not least, again, it comes down to human resources, and it comes down to capability and training. Ensure that people understand not just what you can do with the tools, but also what the risks are, what the ethical risks are, what the risks are around bias, around wrong information given, and all these things. That's really, really important for anyone in the organization to understand as well when they're using those tools. Anything to add here on the AI topic, Nina?
Precisely. One extra thing that I would add is, before you ask an AI something, imagine this AI is Nino and can I tell this to Nino? Is that safe? Is that secure? And if your mind tells you, if your guts tell you no, then don't. Because the AI, imagine it is somebody else's environment. That data is processed somewhere else. And if sensitive information is provided somewhere, somebody is catching that data. And I said use Nino's name, but it could be anybody's name here. It was just an example. It just shows that, should I share that info with somebody who is not within the organization or within whatever I'm doing? And it will give you enough time to think about it.
Exactly. And some of the policies you should have in place anyway around data protection obviously do apply here as well. A lot of the questions centered around what can smaller organizations and generally resource-constrained NGOs, which, let's face it, we all are to some extent,
Yeah.
do. So what are really the areas that organizations should focus on at minimum if they don't have a lot of budget to spend?
Go back to basic. Don't ignore the basic. We always start from basic uh, elements of an attack. Don't ignore regulations. Don't wait for the day that it happens and you will say, "Oh, we got hacked." Always think that somebody will do that. Now, I know the budget is not there, the expertise, the tool that you need might not be there, but I think having a complex password, having a safe account that I'm not going to share this, constantly monitoring to see how your machine is behaving, your laptop battery or your phone's battery shouldn't drain all of a sudden. If it does, well, there is something going on. And this is where you need to understand to see what you have done recently that is changed that. I know it is time consuming, but as I mentioned in one of the slides, cybersecurity is not going to be easy. That you will say, oh, it could be one and two, and we are there, or it's not going to be cheap because it is a sophisticated entity, multi-billion dollar a year that we are paying for the cost of whatever the bad guys are doing to us, beside the protection of it, with regulations and so on and so forth. Train the basic, follow the hygienes of cybersecurity. If something doesn't look right, it is definitely not. And it should give you a buzz that I don't need to click, I don't need to download this app, I don't need to open this email. As valid as it is, oh yeah, I remember somebody called Daniela. They had a webinar, and now there's an email from Daniela that talks about a very great offer. Well, she wasn't supposed to send that email. And if you are not sure, double check. Let's go and find out who this individual called Nina or Daniela are, just to confirm. If you double check, I know it is time consuming here, but those are the weapons we have when you do not have the security operations centers with 100 individuals with tools and equipment. Budget is what we really lack, and it has really gone further down, since last January. There are more. Reach out, please, if you have any questions. At the end, you will see contact details, but if you are not sure, reach out. There is a community that will really help. We are passionate about protecting data and cybersecurity, and I'm sure if there wasn't somebody from NetHope who would answer, a member of NetHope community will answer.
Indeed, yes, that is the power of the community. My AI will be sending out those emails after the webinar, Nino. But I'm going to add one thing to
Sure.
the list. Actually, we know a cyber attack is going to happen because no one is 100% safe. That's a fact, right? So I think it's also useful for organizations to think about what they're going to do if it happens, right? So think about things like a critical system that you have might not function for a while. How do you still operate? How do you restore data that has been stolen or lost? So also useful, I think, and not very costly, to spend some time to thinking through some of those scenarios, and what you're going to do when case X happens. Right. This was another question that many people had, and to some extent, I think we've covered it already.
Yeah.
But yeah, what to expect in 26? More threats, less budget. You
Yeah.
know what else? More AI
Uh,
for sure.
Let's be optimistic. Normally, I'm not an
Course.
optimistic person, to be honest, because we have seen a lot of up and downs throughout the work that we have done. But I think we can be in charge. We can be in control. Remember, you are not alone. Your organization, there is a wider community out there, from for-profit to governments to NGOs, who are passionate about cybersecurity and data protection. There's a community that will answer if there are any issues, and we will face the challenge together. We have done that, since the dawn of mankind, and when internet started, we have faced all these challenges together. And I'm seeing the same thing. I know it's going to be with less budget, with less resources, but I think it will also give us a positive vibe that it is a smaller community that could share every nitty-gritty elements of what you are facing, more so the closer tie together. I don't have to be shy to talk to FHI 365 or NGO ISAC or any other organization, just few that I'm mentioning. I don't have to be shy to talk to Microsoft because now I know that they are there. And same with NetHope and the NetHope members. So I think is good, is not as dark as we might think with all the up and downs. I'm very positive that we will try to make sure that we are protected.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nino. So, final one here, your recommendations. And again, you've mentioned some of them, but here's the full list for everyone.
Yes, I mean, the full list is here. Which one should I start with? We have already covered some of that, from staffing gap to budget. But I think it all comes to a lot of common sense when cybersecurity is there and data protection. Find out to see if it has to be an entity that can stand alone within the ecosystem of your organization. And if it can it have enough budget and resources? And the tools that are out there, which one should we use? This is where the community will become very vital. Don't ignore cybersecurity. Just because you don't see the weakness, it doesn't mean the bad guy cannot also see the weakness. I've mentioned if you go with 2 by power of 32, which is the number of IP version 4 we have, I could use a laptop that will take about 48 hours to scan for one vulnerability across the whole entire network. And is not that difficult. Now, if you thought that, well, why would they scan me? I'm a good guy. We are NGO stuff, doing good stuff. The bad guy don't care really. They just care about controlling your environment, having access to the data, and so on and so forth. The governance should be strong. Make sure that you are following proper regulation. Make sure you do your self assessment in some cases if regulations are not forcing you, but don't stay blind to what it is out there because, as I said, somebody else will do. And also use defense in depth, which here we are calling it adopting a layered defense. I mentioned that you have a house, you have a safe. How do I protect with different layers? Technology is the same, individuals are the same. Always have a shadow cybersecurity individual or department. Trust Nino as much as possible, but always remember Nino will have vulnerability that somebody will try to exploit. If I calculate, I think I have 29 of those vulnerabilities. I'm not going to tell you which one they are, but it just shows that whatever I do might not be enough. That's why you will monitor to see how Nino is behaving. Why Nino is logging at 1 a.m. and trying to download some files, that doesn't really look right. And this is where you ask question and all of a sudden, oh, sorry, my accounts are compromised, and so on and so forth. Enhancing asset and user account management, we have already talked about it. Do not ignore what is called artificial intelligence. It is going to evolve, is not going to go away. Try to make sure how would you adopt that both for the business side of it and also for the protection side of it, because it can offer a lot of stuff. We all use it. It is convenient. It is fast. But always remember, it still is not in the capacity to drive everything. You have to have the second pair of eye to go through it. And don't let your guard down because the bad guys are constantly watching.
Thank you very much. Don't let your guard down. So we've got a little bit of time for Q&A, and I see we have got some questions that came in both in the chat and the Q&A function. So Nino, if you want to have a look at those, I will in the meantime bring up the QR code here for people that have not read the report yet and would very much like to. You can scan the QR code here and read the full report, which has a lot more data and details and recommendations in it as well.
Okay, I'm just going through to see where it is a lot of text messages. How and where can I register for those trainings? Hope, each year we announce that if you are a member, you will receive an email, member of NetHope community, you will receive an email about announcement for those trainings. And that's why I would highly recommend to become member of NetHope community, because there are a lot of stuff that we share among each other. That is one are probably reaching peak usefulness. My concern are the domain specific, also likely to be created by state sponsor APTs. Joshua, yes, that is very valid. And I think when it comes to the side of they will try to make those decisions, that will become another layer or another dimension to AI, which will be vital. I think there's one from Curry that I'm gonna read it out, Daniela, for you. Can you speak to security layer of an AI usage? You mentioned shadow usage, but the actual LLMs are also not built for true data privacy and protection, much less data security.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the reality is, and that's why we're telling people to educate folks in their organizations to not enter, protect the data into a chat window, because that data will otherwise be used by the model, can be used by the model, and that's then always the danger of the data showing up somewhere else, right? So it's really about making sure, when you're using particularly the publicly available models, of course, to very strictly follow the rules around that. There's been lots of conversations, and we've had one just in our AI working group before, about the right architecture and whether having your own LLM model on a private server is the answer. And maybe in terms of security, it would be. In terms of scalability and access, it's not, right? So there's a whole host of questions around that, but to me, the best protection is really to not enter data that's in any way sensitive, and also to make very sure you read the small print on those LLMs you are using, and what they do or do not do with your data, what you can opt out of, etc.
Brilliant. There's one question from Jos. Hopefully, I haven't missed any of those questions. Please, if I have, somebody tell me. There's a lot of text going on. And the question is regarding, well, cybersecurity is only technical. Well, not really. It is not. Let me tell you where it becomes technical. 70% of cybersecurity, when I say cybersecurity, I'm talking about the hacking side of it, is non-technical, believe it or not. Only 30% is very highly technical. This is where we're talking about very sophisticated type of attack, reverse engineering, going back to the assembly language, and very sophisticated spywares like Pegasus and so on and so forth. How do you tackle when that most likely some of you guys have heard of an animation called Futurama. There's a robot in that animation, and that robot calls humans meatware or meatbag, unfortunately. And this is how they refer to as the weakest point when it comes to data protection and cybersecurity, is the human element of it. That's why we go with simulation of social engineering. That's why we will try to find out to see where the weaknesses within our systems are. That's why we go with least privilege accesses, y'all. So Nino will not have access to the data that he doesn't need access to. Daniela doesn't have to see data related or private data related to Nino, and vice versa, if it is not related to business task that they will do. But we monitor. You remember we talked about when somebody is hired, often, unfortunately, when you leave an organization, first thing they ask you is, can you bring your laptop back? They never ask you, how deep have you gone inside the network? How many accounts? What data access you had? Did you modify any of that data? Can you make sure anything that you have downloaded is gone? Can you see how complex it becomes? Because that policy was not there to tackle all of that. So yes, it is technical. Yes, in some cases it can become really tedious and brain will just melt, but 70% is non-technical. If we cover those 70% of what is related to when it comes to human side of it, that we will find a weakness, then in this case we are well protected. There is no 100% guarantee in this planet. There's no 100% protection security in this planet because there are so many elements involved, and there's always one vulnerability that allows somebody to get in. I'm not going to get into the conspiracy world, but hopefully that will make some sense. Hopefully I have not missed anything.
Nino, there's two questions here in the Q&A
Sure.
function as well. One is on training. I think you covered the point around accessing trainings and
Yes, for training. So as I mentioned, every year we will announce that for the members, those trainings are purely for members. But there are many free trainings and other trainings that are provided. So don't ignore that. Search for it, and you will find many providers will come and provide those trainings.
Yeah. And by the way, I've brought two QR codes up here. So for those who are already members, you can join the working group and enjoy. Then with that, join all the wisdom, not only of Nino, but of the overall community and have those exchanges, and then also apply for trainings. And the other one, if you are not yet a NetHope member and would be interested in becoming one, there is a way of contacting us about that as well. But the other question here, and I think that's probably going to be a final one. Any advice for addressing the risk of AI deepfake video calls used in cyber attack? Do you think that will be a legitimate threat in the future? I think there have been some cases already where
Yes.
that was
Yes, that is
used, right?
correct. Yeah, unfortunately. And that's why nowadays I personally don't trust anything that I see. I know as pessimistic as it sounds, but that is the motto here, that you would go with least privilege access. What you see in deepfake, what you see as an email who will send you, or a document, you have to ask the question that, is that legitimate? Can I go back to the source of that? Oh, Daniela sent a video. Yeah, it looked like Daniela. It sounds like Daniela, but I'm going to call her to see if that is really Daniela who will do it. I know in some cases we cannot because it comes from external sources, but hopefully what actually will try to tackle that is the regulation by governments and entities. Like recently, I'm based in UK. One of the issues that currently the government will have, or it has, is with X or X Twitter, as it was called, regarding their AI that is capable of making these videos. And they have said, if you don't stop it, we will block access to X from the UK. So there are methods that they could use, but this is very high level. As an individual, whatever you can is always ask the question to see if it is legitimate, and if it is not, walk away from it. Don't trust it. Don't open it. Don't do what I won't do. Hopefully that will help.
Thank you, Nino. And I think we have called the questions, just scrolling through here.
Hopefully we haven't missed anything, because there has been a lot of text. Very nice community that is involved. Thank you so much, everyone.
Wonderful to see the
Yeah,
posts of all these people in the
it's
call, in the chat
fascinating.
here. Absolutely amazing. Clearly, cybersecurity is something that unites us.
Yeah.
All here. So yeah, and we are coming to the end of the session. You know, any final words?
Reach out if you are not sure. There's a community that is passionate about cybersecurity. We are here. Become part and member of the NetHope community. Ask before any uncertainty. We will help. And thank you so much for all of you guys being here today.
Thank you also from my side to everyone that's been here and joined the discussion. As I said in the beginning, we will be sharing the recording that will then also have the QR codes in it if you didn't catch them now, if you want to download the report or join the community. We wish you a good and safe from cybersecurity threat rest
Indeed.
of your day and your week. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.